and we are now recording. So I wanted to take a moment just to welcome you all to the Mindfulness Sessions. My name is Morgan Fitzgerald, and I am here with the very lovely Jo Ball from Switchboard. Hi, Jo.
Hi, Morgan. How are you tonight?
I'm doing really well. How are you going?
Yeah, good. Happy to be here and happy for the live audience and for those who'll watch afterwards.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Thank you so much for actually coming, everyone, and Jo especially for talking. We are going through a really unique time. When we look at what's happening in the world, obviously we've got a few health concerns with COVID. I think in times of health and stress and work and trying to make sure we keep our jobs, and if we don't have jobs, what we do next, we need to really focus on mental health and physical health and just really connect as a community. So what I wanted to do is actually welcome you all here to be a part of this very special event. So myself and Jo wanted to actually talk about how we've been coping with the interesting COVID-19 situation. Jo, how have you been coping?
Yeah, look, it's certainly a really unusual experience for sure. And I think first of all, I'd just like to say that just to acknowledge the land that I'm on. I'm on the land of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and that's where I am, and I'd like to pay respects to their elders past, present and emerging, and also acknowledge that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people are disproportionately affected by COVID-19 because of health outcomes and public health policy. So I just sort of wanted to bring that into this space.
Thank you.
And yeah, no worries. And I think how am I getting through this is that I am exercising every single day. That's just me. I don't recommend that necessarily for everyone, but that's me. That's my coping. And, you know, I write my own routines around the exercise each day, and I enjoy that process of putting it together. And I definitely, outside of the exercise, I'm focusing intently on what I can control rather than what I can't control, which I think is really important. If advice I'd give to people in general, but it really works for me, is like there's all these things you can't control right at the moment, like just so much. But there are some things I can control, and I can control, you know, the food that I'm eating and the exercise that I'm doing and my home environment to a certain extent. So I'm focusing on that rather than, and this is an active process. I don't always achieve it. It doesn't always it doesn't always happen. So I'm not saying like I do this and I'm perfect, because I'm absolutely not perfect at this. It's a practice, not a perfection. And that is that I try not to focus, like I can't control what people put on social media. I can't control what people put on Twitter. And sometimes, so I'm trying not to focus on that. I can't control that, you know, there's a low amount of toilet paper, or, you know, you go to the shops and it's stressful. I can't control those things. So I try and almost like that sort of mindfulness practice is like, bring my mind back to the things I can control and the things that are in my world, and try to not sort of trail off and think about all those things that I guess at times are just deeply frustrating. And also really within that, I try and practice, again, not perfect at it, but I try and practice generosity and understanding that some things that I can't control, like other people's behaviours or other people's attitudes, can often be a result of people's own anxieties and people's own issues. Trying to be really, really generous and being like, oh, that person who, you know, is getting too close to me in the supermarket and that's stressing me out. Like, you know, that might be because they're having a panic attack, and just trying to be generous, trying to come from a place of generosity with people first and foremost. So that's definitely what I'm trying to do. Focusing on all those things.
And look, one thing I will say, thank you so much for calling out the acknowledgement of country. That's so important that we do it. On a scale of maybe 1 to 10, most days since COVID-19 has started, because we've been in this sort of limbo land for probably about, I'd say, 4 weeks, 5 weeks. What kind of rating would you give yourself on a scale of 1 to 10? Like on a scale of being 10 feeling really, really good, or 1 not feeling so great, where do you sort of sit on the scale?
It's definitely different every single day,
Mm-hmm.
um, and I look, I would, I think that I'm, I've got a few things going in my favour. So one of those is that I'm employed,
Mm-hmm.
and that I'm housed, and I think they're things that not everybody has, not everyone has in Australia, and it's not something that everybody has throughout the world. Absolutely, and I've access to sanitation, and I have an ability to take control over parts of my life. So I'd say, look, I think I'm sitting on about a 7, but absolutely there are days when I'm not, and I think that, being at a 1 or a 2, which, I wouldn't say that I haven't been there. I haven't had those days of being quite stressed out because, I've had to make a lot of changes at work in a really short period of time about how we do our work and things like that. And they've been really stressful. But I think that to be on a 1 or a 2 or a 3, that just shows that you're in touch with the world, I think. Because I think that it's reasonable that you would be feeling 1, 2, or 3 some days. Everybody, it is reasonable that they feel that way. So I don't try and, myself up feeling stressed, because in fact, feel stressed means that I'm in touch with what's going on around me. But I need to stay there. I don't think it's good for me to stay at 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah.
One of the things I think 100% I'm finding with my own journey as well is that I find it, I've had probably about 3 days last week where I completely felt 100% powerless. But then there are most days where I sort of think to myself, if I've got the right people around me, if I avoid, I guess, social media and looking at for negative stories, if I'm meditating, if I'm doing self-care, like you, even though I am sitting at a low end some days, there'll be other days where I'm feeling pretty good. One of the things I do sort of want to understand about you, for people who haven't met you, can you tell me a bit about who you are, what you do, and what services are available for community out there?
Yeah, sure. So, my name is Jo Ball, and I'm the CEO of Switchboard Victoria, and an organisation that's 29 years old this year. I started in my role at Switchboard in December 2016. So in some ways, I feel like I've been here a really long time because I've been through some really big things with the organisation. One of them, the postal survey, and being sort of feeling like we were very much a frontline service during that period. And so in some ways, I feel like I've only just been here in the lifetime of the organisation, but in other ways, I feel like I've sort of weathered enough storms that, I'm an old hat. So it's just, again, it's that, like, whichever way you look at it, I feel differently about it. Before I worked at Switchboard, I was a senior public servant, and in those roles, I worked in a number of government departments. And for people who know, I worked for the Australian Bureau of Statistics, the Australian Charities and Not-for-Profits Commission, and I even worked for the ATO. And in those roles, what I found is that I spent a lot of time trying to do LGBTI work. Like I worked, when I was in the ATO, I helped set up Atomic, which is ATO, making inclusion work. That's their Pride collective, it's called Atomic. And then, I felt like at each job I went to, I tried to make the Pride work happen. And then I realized at some point, I actually just want to do community building. And I want to actually get my hands dirty and not just do it as like one part of my job, but as all of my job. And, and I wasn't always a public servant. Before I was a public servant, I worked in housing and homelessness.
Okay.
So I started my there, and then...
So you started in sort of government public service, and then you sort of migrated through to Switchboard. One of the most important things I think I love about you is that you're empathic. So you feel what other people feel. You put yourself in other people's shoes, but you're also in a place where you love your job, and your job means that you can actually support people. What kind of services are available with Switchboard?
Yeah, sure. So first and foremost to say upfront is all our services are currently open.
Okay, good to hear.
Switchboard is deemed an essential service during COVID-19, so we are not shut down in any way. However, we are doing our services a little bit differently. But one of our services is called Out and About, and that's a service where normally we would visit people in person at their older people who are LGBT identifying in their aged care facility or in their home. So we consider it, it's an intergenerational friendship visiting service, and for older people who are socially isolated.
Just wanting to make sure that I can see Joe. I think Joe has just left the building. And I can see Joe again. Hi.
Sorry, I was the only one that got kicked out?
I think so, but I'm glad you're back.
What was I up to? Because I kept
talking about the services for aged LGBTIQ community. And I think you were sort of moving back into what obviously was happening with Switchboard at the moment.
Oh, yeah. So what I was saying about that is we're still visiting people, but we're virtually visiting them. So we're doing phone calls and writing letters. And a couple of weeks ago, we sent out care packages to all the people in our service.
What was in the care packages?
Yeah, that's a good question, because what we sent out at the time, which is still an issue now, is we sent out like soap and toilet paper and hand sanitizer, and actually a lot of essential things, but then we sent out a nice gift too. So we sent out, chocolate, and depending on what people's dietary requirements were, we sent them something nice and sweet to eat. But the important thing we also did was we sent them out an information card that said, COVID-19 is happening and that you need to stay safe at this time. Because one of the things we realised with our older people is that a lot of people feel really scared about like authority or aged care workers. That people are afraid that like what they're being told maybe is a form of abuse. Like having someone who lives in an aged care facility, they can feel like, oh, why am I suddenly not allowed to go outside? And distrustful because of all the things they've gone through, right, in their lives, of how they were treated by the system as an LGBTI person. So we made sure we sent out these information cards so that they knew that it was from someone they trusted, that was Switchboard. They know who cares about them and who knows about them. And so we reinforced the government's message and said, it is true. And then because some of the people have dementia, it could also be a card that they put up in their house. So if they forgot later about the messaging, it's a sign that they could put up in their room, in their resi care, or they could put it up in their home. So it was a bit of a public health message as much as it was actually a nice gift as well.
I think that's great to hear.
Yeah, and look, and we were only able to do that because people donated. Like we did a fundraiser for it, and it was really lovely. People in the community donated, and that was awesome. And people were so generous in the money they donated and made it really possible. And we hope to send out another care package, but as we all know, as time goes on, it just gets harder and harder to sort of be out there, isn't it? And because when we did it, we did it with obviously all of our staff wearing gloves and some of our volunteers and people wearing face masks and. I guess as these escalate, it's getting harder to sort of do things like deliver things in the mail, but we're going to give the best shot.
Look, that's great.
That's one service. Sorry, that's just one service. The other thing is we're still running our phone line.
And that's really good.
We've got a phone line. We've slightly changed our hours. So if you're looking to web chat, you can chat between 3 p.m. and midnight every single day, and web chat is open the whole time. But if you do want to call the phone, we've changed it to 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. And so that's open right now, and people can call, and when you get off the line, you can call. I mean, if you're watching it live, of course. If you're watching it the next day, it may not be between 6 p.m. and 10 p.m. Yeah. But you can, and that's, why we've changed the hours is we've just tried to make it sure that more of the phone calls that are being made are answered. So we've truncated the hours, put, all of our staff on at this one peak period. So we hope, be able to get through. That's our plan.
Well, that's a good plan. It's definitely something that I think is helping community. And that's one thing I really love about Switchboard is that you've just said you're giving out aged care sort of support packages. I'd love to receive one of them, but obviously I'm not one of your lovely people. You've also got phone services, and you've also got online. So I think that really brings home the point that even though we are in COVID, even though that we are in a situation where we have to stay at home, community in the eyes of Switchboard and yourself is number one at priority, isn't it?
Yeah, and we're just not going anywhere. This is who we are. Is that when the going gets tough, we just step it up and we just change our service and we just bond. And I've said to so many people during this time, and what motivates me is that our organisation, Switchboard Victoria, it was born of a disease. It was born of an epidemic. Like, we were born out of the AIDS HIV crisis.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've experience with this, and that was how we were forged. So this kind of current environment is something that, if you will, and I mean this quite literally as well, it's in our blood.
Mm-hmm.
To respond to an epidemic.
Mm-hmm.
And we're so motivated to do it. And I think that whenever I think that my day is hard, I just turn my mind to those activists who started, the first action coalitions in Australia, who started under such terrible stigma within an environment where they weren't getting any government funding, where they weren't getting the public messaging that we're all getting, and the way that they were treated and the way our community was treated. And those people still stood up. And I think of them and I think, if they could do it in the environment they did it, then every day I can and do it again. So it's just, I feel, we're primed for this and we're ready for it.
And I think one of the things that I'm hearing you say is that, this was born out of a disease, and it was almost a darkness, if you will, and we grew out of that, and we're growing into a centred, better community. Even though we're in COVID, are there any positives that you are seeing within community, coming together or learning from or growing to, that you're seeing at the moment?
I think one of the things that's come to my mind is maybe not explicitly a positivity, but is a sense that I think that, as queer people, we're quite good. I think we're a lot better than other people at responding to these kind of moments, because we're used to being isolated and we're used to having to find all these ways to come together.
Mm-hmm.
Used to being rejected and cut off, and it's part of the experience we've been through coming out. And some of us even terribly had bullying and things like that, and we've actually we put up some tools both as individuals and as a community to respond to these moments. And I think we're actually in quite a unique position to be able to, we're already on the front foot in the sense of people are already like in Facebook groups, are in support groups, because we already function this way, that we're already in this environment, that the people closest to us aren't always the people we immediately turn to, and we've got to actually, whether that's our biological family or, that's the case I'm talking about now, we actually are so used to having to find and navigate the world in a different way. So in some ways I feel like being queer is a helpful thing during this time. Yeah. And so I think that's a positive. And I also think as queer people, we're less invested in things remaining the same, because the world that was before COVID-19 wasn't serving us all that well. There was a lot, we were facing down a religious discrimination bill, there was a lot of prejudice. And I think that the world wasn't perfect. So it's not like, as queer people, it's not like we have a deep nostalgia for things to go back exactly the way they were. And I think that's a massive strength, because for most of us we desperately wanted things to change. We wanted the world to be different, not because of a virus, of course, absolutely not because of a virus. I'm not saying that, but that we weren't happy with the way things were to start with. So we're in a position to, I guess, sort of I think for some people what I'm seeing is they just say, oh God, I can't wait till things go back the way they are, the way they were. Whereas I think as queer people, we're less likely to feel that way. And that's a helpful way to feel, because whatever happens out of this, things will not go back the way they are. Should I say? It's
an interesting, I guess, past, present, future kind of scenario we find ourselves in. And I think it is 100% valid. I think as queer people, we have been othered and we have felt alone, but in that sense that we are sort of shut down, we're shut down in our homes, how great are things like this. I love what the LAIRD's doing. I love what Switchboard's doing in terms of trying to virtually connect everyone together so we feel less alone. One of the other quick questions, and I know that we've only got about 7 minutes left of this session. You said to me that you had some tools that you've been using to keep yourself occupied, feeling happy, feeling good. I'll show you one of mine if you show me one of yours. So this one here is Tiger's Eye Crystal. It's a mala bead necklace, and I actually meditate with it. It's got 109 crystals, and what I do is I put it around my neck, sort of like so, and these crystals are sort of attracted to mala energy points. So I go 1 to 108, calling out a mantra, so Om Shanti, so universal peace, and it sort of helps to relax me when I feel anxious. What do you have with you? Show me what you got.
Yeah, for me, ideas are really important to me, and being sort of stimulated by ideas. And one of the things is, and I feel like there has been a bit more time for reading, but I just have this just sitting on my desk here. I haven't got it out especially, but I've been reading this book called Transliberation, which is by Leslie Feinberg, and it's quite a beautiful book. If some people know the work of Leslie Feinberg, who wrote the book Stone Butch Blues, but this is includes a lot of their speeches. And the other book I have, which might be a surprise to some people, but is Kafka.
Tell me about that one. I don't know anything about it.
Oh, I'm reading their poetry at the moment, so it's a book of poetry, and for me, I think that creativity. I used to think when I was younger that I wasn't creative because I didn't paint, and I didn't do the sort of. But one of the things I do think is I'm quite creative with my thoughts, and I love ideas, and I love writing. Not writing myself, but reading writing is what I'd say. I like people who the written word. So that's where I've been turning, I think. The other thing. Yeah, so I just keep those books there, and occasionally between a Zoom meeting or not, I might just open up to a page and just read and see what's there.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Now, I know that we've probably only got about 5 minutes left of our virtual catch-up session. Now, these sessions will have more to come. So we'll have more guest speakers. We'll have more guest speakers from community, not just queer community, but all communities talking about COVID, how they're coping, tips, tricks, all of that. So stay tuned. All of the guest speakers in terms of the mindfulness sessions and the sessions that I personally run are an offering to community, and they will be recorded. So what we'll do at the end of this session, we will upload it, I think, on YouTube. But stay tuned, and I guess look for the link, and then forward it on to your friends and family that potentially could use the virtual sessions to connect. Now, Joe, one final question: what is self-care to you? So you've told us about your love of books. You told us how you're going, what Switchboard is. Give me a few quick sentences on what self-care is for you in COVID-19.
Yeah, I think for me it's just about understanding myself. And one of the things that, I have said to my own staff at Switchboard is that now is the time to go into your arsenal of self-care. Or arsenal or your backpack, because I think right now a lot of us actually know what it is we need to do. And we've been, a lot of us have been to counselling or, had conversations with friends or been in groups or, and we've had a lot of thought over our lives about what works for us. And so what I've said to our staff is go into your bag, your arsenal, and get everything out that you have learnt about yourself, about what you need, and use it now. That's what I'd say, is use everything you have ever, found out about yourself that works. And that's what I'm doing. I'm thinking back to hard times in my life and personal work I've done to work out what I need. And I'm remembering those times, I'm remembering those counselling sessions, and I'm just taking everything I know that works for me, and I'm trying to do it now, because this is one of the most challenging things any of us have ever been through. So the time is not to hesitate and to wait later to do self-care. You need to do it now. I'm doing it now, and I do it every day. And there's no like checklist of self-care. You need to know yourself. It's all about knowing yourself and what works for yourself. For me, it works to exercise every day. For some people, that would be a terrible idea. So I'm not saying do this, do that. You know, I use the Headspace app. That's not great for everyone. For me though, so my advice to people is do what you know works for you. You know yourself best, and don't hesitate. Go into your arsenal, get it all out.
Reach out to friends. Reach out to Switchboard.
You know what you need. Don't wait. We've got people sitting on the phone now. If talking to people is what you need to do, and you need to talk to people who aren't people in your house or your direct friends, then you call us. And we're open from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. Get online, find the phone number. I'll tell you now, it's 1-800-184-527. You know, people are waiting to hear from you. You know, look after yourself. You know, we need to stay healthy together. Stay well.
Thank you. And look, saying that, Jo, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I absolutely adore you. I think you're fantastic, and I appreciate all the work you do for community. For all of those coming along tonight who are live or watching back live later, look, thank you so much for being here. Stay tuned for more to come. From me to you, you're all loved, and Jo, I love you as well. So thank you, and thank you, and thank you, everyone. Have a good night, and stay tuned and connect and be well. We love you.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.